talk for a moment about the European biotech sector in particular. The corporate sector would, of course, have the same challenges as biotech companies have globally, but Europe has some unique challenges in promoting R&D and some failure to live up to the Lisbon agenda. And I'd like to get perhaps some views on the outlook for the European biotech sector, and within that, the ability of the European Union to promote R&D and innovation to the level that has been expressed as a goal. I know, Mr. Hernandez, you work as well with the WIPO organization looking at the EU, so maybe you could weigh in on this.
Before that, I would like to say that I agree completely with my previous colleagues in this roundtable. For me, it's very important two things. On the one hand, the capital, the financing for this kind of operations, these difficult projects to be financed, and the support of the government, in the case of Spain, is coming not only with these schemes of R&D taxation deductions or social security, but there are two other ways which are very important on my view. On the one hand, to promote talent in Spain, education in Spain. We have more than 7,000 scientists working in this sector, but we think that we should think about attracting talent from abroad. And for that reason, last year we eased the procedure of granting visa and resident permits to scientists and also to researchers coming from abroad. The government of Spain is highly committed to promote attracting talent, to complement our own talent. Also, in order to finance operations, sometimes the private sector is not coming. Then we need also public entities to support this. For that reason, we have created within the Ministry of Industry and now the Ministry of Innovation, now we have a Ministry of Innovation, we have an institution called CEDETI, which has a very interesting scheme, which is called Neotech. It's a fund, venture capital fund, which is investing directly in this kind of projects and also is co-investing with foreign venture capitals, venture funds in Spanish projects. This is very important. And also it's important the regulation. In Spain, we changed our regulation for venture capital in order to promote this sector from Spain, inside Spain. And now we have a new law on venture capital, which is very attractive. And the other thing is the support of the government in the way of research centers, in the way of intellectual property. And for that reason, in Spain, we have more than close to 300 public centers dedicated to research, and especially R&D research. And also we have more than 80 scientific parks, for instance, related to this sector. We have too many hospitals related to this sector. Then for us, I think it's a clear potential. And also the investor is looking for niches of opportunities. They are looking for cost, for infrastructure, for general things, for taxation, but also for niches of opportunities. They are not coming for doing business generally on the sector, at least the investors we are meeting every day in Invest in Spain. They are looking for niches of opportunities. And for that reason, in Invest in Spain, what we are doing is to create, to analyze which are these niches of opportunities in Spain to be, let's say, transmitted, to be communicated to potential investors. We have some examples in generics, venture capital with the new law is another possibility, functional foods, nanomedicine. I'm not expert, you are the expert, Jorge. But okay, this is the most relevant concerning Spain. Concerning the European Union, last year hasn't been a very good year for FDI in general. Last week we could analyze the new figures released by Untitled. The United States growth was close to 38%. BRIC countries growth on average was close to 40%. And in Europe, even though we are the first in the ranking of attracting FDI, we experienced a dramatic decrease of close to 38%. Spain, fortunately, was only 4% decrease, but some countries had experienced decreases of 50%, 45% around Spain. And for that reason, thinking about this reduction of the market share of Europe in this, let's say, business of FDI, the market share has gone down from 54% in 2005 to 32% last year, 2008. We think we should work together. For that reason, within WIPA, the World Association of Investment Promotion Agencies, there are many regions. One region is the European Union, and now the director. Our aim is to work all together in order to get to two main aims. On the one hand, to promote, to change the image of Europe, to modernize the image of Europe in new sectors such as biotech, and on the other hand, working on public advocacy, policy advocacy in the European Commission, not in the states, different states, because it's up to us, but trying to transmit the European Commission through our governments and directly the requirements coming from investors. We are listening to the investors every day. We know what they want, what they need for R&D, for visa procedures, for everything, in order to tell them, okay, that's in order to become more attractive in Europe, to attract more investment, we need to do this and this and this. And that's one of the main aims of this new group in WIPA. But there are many things that can be done.
Yeah, I just want to pick up what was said earlier about the competitiveness of European Union against other parts of the world in terms of the attractiveness for biotechnology investment and ability to promote biotechnology growth. If you look at, again, all the factors we talk about in terms of the success factors for biotechnology growth, we talk about talents, we talk about government regulation for technology transfer and tax policy, we talk about IP protection, we talk about funding capabilities, and we talk about cost. And if you look at China, India, Singapore, Korea, Taiwan, all these countries also have decided to put a lot of money behind biotechnology growth. And that you begin to think about, well, what are the challenges for the European Union countries that will be able to compete against those countries? If you go back to many of these success factors, I would say that in some way the cost actually is going to be a challenge for the European Union countries versus the cost for other parts of the world. So the way you look at it then in that case is to say that, well, what are you paying for is going to be worth, right, your money. And in that case, for European countries, and I think so it's for you as well, you're going to have to move actually to the more challenging and more technology demanding part of the biotechnology. Biotechnology after 20 years has actually enough of a bandwidth that it probably can accommodate all kinds of country desires, and I would say certain parts of the biotech probably be more suitable for the Asian emerging countries. But certain other parts of biotechnology, platform and technology-wise, cannot be at all pursued in that part of the world, just because of the, again, the educated labor force demands. That I think will be the unique opportunity for European countries. The other part I just want to mention that, that I want to be sure that we cover a little bit is that when you talk about the overseas expansion for biotech company, you talk about direct expansion, but you also talk about indirect expansion. The indirect expansion, I mean through CMOs and CROs. because the contract research organization actually now represent a significant part of the R&D value chain activities. And many of them are in the biotech area now as a development, preclinical studies, experimental animal model work. And a lot of that require, again, high level of education, background, and capability that probably only certain parts of the world, such as U.S. and EU countries, will be able to nurture those type of companies. So I think when you begin to really look at the competitiveness of the EU countries, accepting the fact that the cost aspect is going to be, a challenge, you need to begin to think about, well, where else
So they
you
must
can go
compete
into,
on
you're going to win.
quality.
You can compete on quality. You can compete on difficulty in performing the task. The level of challenge for the activities, for the technology platforms.
Could I just pick up on one point in terms of, again, the competitiveness of the EU and going back to finance? In that, and I think it's important to distinguish between biotechnology and other life sciences companies. So I take a true biotech as being, let's say, straight drug discovery and development. So the outcome of which is binary, and the cost of which is, to take it all the way through to the end of phase 3, then we're talking hundreds of millions of pounds. So are we ever looking then for a startup biotech to actually take it all the way through the drug pipeline? I think mostly people will say no. We don't expect biotech to turn itself into specialty pharma, with exceptions, obviously. So if that is the case, if the biotech, a proper biotech company, is going to be in that early stage of development, it will always be pre-revenue unless it's got a platform technology on the side which it can provide a little bit of services on. And it will get to revenue, hopefully, when it's done some partnering deals whereby it reaches a value point, for example, the results of its phase 2 clinical trials, and it'll get a milestone from its partner or whatever. But in terms of whether it's going to get that milestone, again, binary, we're talking clinical development. Meanwhile, it's burning cash, and not for all of them, but for many of them, burning cash in a completely legitimate way, because we haven't tested yet to see whether this particular molecule is going to make it. It's all legitimate. But the demands then on funding that are so high that always, I think, will depress small biotechs. In the States, they've had a better run at it because the VCs have had just more appetite for putting in $12 million at Series A, whereas a European VC will put in $2 million at Series A and then maybe drip feed a little bit more as it goes on. And so we said, OK, the VC model doesn't seem to work terribly well in Europe. So then, well, let's look at the capital markets. And probably that's an even sadder tale now, particularly if we look at AIM. There was a fashion where small biotechs listed on AIM, and if we now look at their market cap, then some of them are trading below their cash. And so what we don't really have is a funding system that can actually get European biotech going. And the only thing that's happening, if I'm going to be controversial about it, is that as soon as one comes out of the stalls and looks half decent, then pharma just goes in and swallows it up. And so, the trend is M&A activity from pharma rather than allowing a company properly funded to actually make it and say, I'm a proper European biotech company. There are exceptions, but unless that happens, I don't see European biotech really getting a name for itself. It's just been held back because of the constraints of the funding.
Well, can I just add to that? It's interesting that your impression about the U.S. versus the EU funding environment, because I was just reading the latest annual report of Ernst-Young about the impact of the financial drought to the biotech funding, and it actually reported that there's a significant increase of the number of companies that have cash to keep the company going for more than 12 months. Okay, so in 2007, it's 25% of the U.S. company, and in 2008, it's 50% of U.S. companies, the biotech companies with less than 12-month cash. And in Europe, actually, it was 18% for 2007 and 37% for 2008, those companies that have less than 12-month cash. So I was actually just thinking, well, actually, who's going to provide a mini bailout? So bailout is a big word nowadays, but some of these companies have the technology that's probably going to make it. But who is going to provide that little bailout so that they can live another two years, so that they can have the results and the proof of concept to show that their technology is going to be of high value, right? So I think that whose role that is, and who should take that opportunity, and will government be willing to? I mean, government willing to invest so much for a big bailout. Are they willing to invest a little bit for mini bailouts?
I'm not hearing much about biotech bailouts, are we?
No, not at all.